Good morning, everybody. That woke everybody up. My name is Karen Chupka. I'm Senior Vice President of CES and Corporate Business Strategy for the Consumer Technologies Association. And, first of all, I want to thank all of our amazing speakers and brands that we've had here over these last couple of days participating in our C-Space Storyteller sessions. They've brought with them many remarkable mix of case studies and stories to share, and I really want to acknowledge and thank them all because we really appreciate all the support that we've got for this new program that's here in its second year at CES. So this morning, I'm pleased to introduce our final C-Space Storyteller session that's brought to you by Yahoo's Chief Revenue Officer, Lisa Utzschneider. Lisa and Subaru are going to discuss how brand storytelling, video advertising, and data are evolving and changing the playing field for today's marketer. For some background on Lisa, she became the Chief Revenue Officer at Yahoo in July 2015. And before that, she served as Yahoo's Senior Vice President of Sales for the Americas. Many of you might know her from her spectacular work during her 6 years at Amazon, where her last position was Vice President of Global Advertising Sales. And prior to that, she spent 10 years at Microsoft leading a variety of advertising initiatives in product development, sales strategy, and online industry standards. She is a board member of the Advertising Council and the Interactive Advertising Bureau. Subaru has made headlines in the automotive industry over the last several years, and Lisa is going to be joined on stage by Rob Font, Director of Digital Marketing and Communications for Subaru of America, and Jack Kelly, Digital and Media Social Marketing Manager for Subaru of America. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Lisa Utzschneider.
Yay. Thanks, Karen. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Are you guys awake this morning? Feeling CES? Just want to thank Karen again for the introduction. I am Lisa Utzschneider, CRO of Yahoo. It's a pleasure to be here today and to share a bit about storytelling with an ROI and also to have our Subaru partners in the house. There's one thing we know is that consumer and knowing your consumer is the most important ingredient of effective storytelling. And it's something that Subaru does every single day. We're just going to share one spot, it's called Love, from Subaru that just shows just that, how they're making that connection with the consumer.
Hey, pal. You ready? Can you pick me up at 6:30? Life can be hard, buddy.
Okay. Oh, I'm so glad I got the car wash. I'm here.
Too late.
I'll go for 5 minutes.
Gotta feed the meter.
What's the meter? Where am I supposed to go? Oh, people. I'm fine. Move it. You're killing me. You know what, Dad? I'm good.
It may be quite a while before he's ready, but our Subaru Legacy will be waiting for him.
The longest-lasting midsize sedan in its class. Introducing the all-new Subaru Legacy. It's not just a sedan, it's a Subaru.
Isn't that a great story? Let's give it up for Subaru. So, as I mentioned before, we're very focused on partnering with great brands like Subaru to tell stories every day with our consumers and make sure we're also delivering an ROI. And what we found over the years at Yahoo is that there are 3 very important areas we focus on in telling those stories. First is inspiration. And like that spot, and we'll be sharing other Subaru spots throughout our fireside chat, Subaru has been inspiring their consumers every single day and creating relevant and meaningful connections with those consumers because they know their consumer so deeply. The second area is purpose. And what I mean by that is we partner with Subaru to really understand what their goals are as a marketer, to get aligned on their goals, and to ensure we're not just focused on driving efficiency, but that's a combination of the meaningful connection and driving the ROI. And the third is measurement. If you can't measure it, how do you know it even worked? And we'll share some examples of how we've been partnering with Subaru to ensure that we are making those connections and we're able to measure it. So with that, please welcome Rob Font and Jack Kelly to the stage from Subaru. Let's give them a warm welcome. Hi guys, how are you today?
Very well, thanks.
Here you go.
All right. Okay, so with that, it's a pleasure to have Subaru in the house with us. And as I mentioned before, we've been working with Subaru for many years, and they've done just some amazing work. So thank you for your partnership, and thanks for taking the time today.
Thank
And
you.
how's your CES going? Is it going okay?
So far, so good.
So far, yeah, it's home stretch, right?
right.
Okay, so Subaru. So Subaru's had an interesting history over the last, let's say, 7 to 10 years. And I thought it would be helpful if we just start with, if you could share, Rob, a little bit about Subaru's history and how you and the team were able to help turn around the company and the perception of the Subaru brand.
Well, sure. Well, thanks for having us here. We're delighted to represent Subaru. And, you know, it's really been an incredible journey for us. When you think about where we've been, 7 years, 8 years ago versus where we are today, we're very fortunate. You know, we just came out of, or just concluded our 7th consecutive year of record-breaking sales. And we have also increased market share. So we're feeling really, really good about the momentum that the Subaru brand has today. When you start thinking about the future, for us, it's about staying focused, right? We can't lose sight of where we came from and where we need to go. And so there are fundamental things that are in place for us, and we got to keep our heads down and continue to move forward. If you look at our brand history and you look at where we were in 2007, sales really just peaked at 180,000 units per year. And we had a hard time really sort of moving that needle. We were also on sale almost every other month. And the only way that we could draw our customers in was by incentivizing. You look at where we were, 2/3 of the Americans had no opinion about Subaru, and part of that was because we had 6 taglines in 7 years. Think about that, 6 taglines
in 7 years.
in 7 years.
That's amazing.
Frankly, we had an identity issue that we needed to solve for. And we were also plagued by, an unappealing stereotypes. I'm sure many of you have heard, the famous Subaru is a very quirky brand, right?
Crunchy granola.
But we've sort of gotten out of that phase, and we've made some strides. Now, if you look at where we are today, and you take a look back at sort of how we got there, again, 8 years of consecutive growth. And throughout those 8 years, there were a couple things that could have really put us out of business when you think about it, right? I mean, maybe not so much the tsunami in Japan, although that affected a lot of Japanese manufacturers. But we also had a recession, right? And we're proud to say that we were the only manufacturer that stood up to say we had year-over-year growth, even during that time period. So really, that speaks true to the brand power. We rose in market position to number 9, so now we're one of the top 10 brands in the industry. And we're in company with a lot of luxury brands as well. So we're hoping that over the years we can be in the top 5, but being in 9th place right now doesn't suck.
Yeah, no, that's amazing growth, that hockey stick growth right now.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So let's get a little bit deeper into some of the marketing efforts that you made as a team to help drive up the hockey stick growth. And when we were preparing yesterday, I remember we were talking about Subaru often says they try to operate, you're more than a car company. So Jack, could you speak to that and what that means?
Sure. With the success we've had over the past few years, we've really been trying to do something that's bigger than just selling vehicles and really make an impact on the environment and the world, right? Because we know that that's something our customers value, our team back at Subaru values, our partners value, and it's something that we're really passionate about. And if you look back to the early 2000s, there was a group at our factory that makes Subarus in the US, the SIA plant, where this group saw a lot of waste coming back and forth between a lot of plastics, a lot of wrapping, a lot of things like styrofoam, which held engines from Japan, and then they would just throw that away when it got here. They start to identify there was an ability to take those pieces of styrofoam and ship them back onto the empty boats that were coming back to Japan, right? Because they'd come here full of vehicles, they go back empty. So with that success, they really said, well, what else can we do? And about 10 years ago, they became zero landfill. And really what that means is the fact that they don't throw anything away at the plant. So in the past few days here in Vegas, you probably threw more away in the garbage into a landfill that would go to a landfill eventually than the SIA plant has in the past 10 years. So we're really proud of that. And we thought that was something our customers should know and just get them excited about the brand and the tie-in to the eco messaging that we sort of dovetail into the brand.
So you incorporated that messaging into your storytelling and connecting with the consumer. And
we
it
have,
resonated.
and the really cool part about what we're doing now is there's a group at Subaru who's actually going out and working with other brands to help them achieve the same thing. So we've been working with the national parks and helping them to decrease the amount of materials that are going to landfills, because the parks are beautiful and people come to visit them, and they should, but a lot of times they bring in things that are maybe unnecessary, things like propane tanks, a lot of plastics, those type of things, and at times they cost more to recycle than they actually were worth to begin with. So it's a drain from an economic standpoint, and it's also very difficult on the landfills.
Okay, great. And I think we have a spot we're going to show, okay? All right, let's run it. Do we have sound?
It's a slow build.
What's that?
It's a slow build.
There you go.
100 million pounds. That's how much garbage visitors to our national parks add to the country's landfills each year. But this year, Subaru is sharing their zero landfill expertise with the national parks to work toward the goal of making garbage there a thing of the past.
Okay, love that spot. Great job.
Thank you.
So let's shift back to the storytelling with an ROI. And I know in your pursuit of getting to that hockey stick growth, Subaru has made a concerted effort to better understand your consumers, what they care about, and integrate their needs into your storytelling with an ROI. And so Rob, can you speak to that? And then we'll show a few examples of some of the spots.
Yeah, sure. So while we all know that there isn't really a single recipe for brand success, it's our belief that when you really hone in specifically on what really matters to your customer, and you really tie that along with a story that makes complete sense, that draws them in, that's authentic, that's really emotional, the magic starts to happen. And that's what's really worked for us. That's how we've come to a really successful brand, is we've been able to really understand who our customer is and speak the language that they speak. So when you think about storytelling, it's one of the most powerful ways that you can breathe life into a brand. And that's critically important as you start thinking about content marketing, right? So that combination of really telling a good story and understanding what the needs of the customers are really takes somebody to a place in a journey that they really want to engage with a brand with. And so that to us is extremely important. You know, a brand is a matter of perception, right? And so when people really believe a brand, the likelihood of them purchasing from you actually goes to the roof, right? And so for us, that's critically important. That's how we sort of build this level of success.
Okay, great. So let's roll this spot.
Just to kind of set this up, so
Sure.
When you think about car companies in general, right, and you think about year-end sales event, think about all the manufacturers that are on sale during the month of December, right? Toyota, Nissan, I mean, you name it, they're all on sale. We took a different approach. We actually sat down and said, how do we take a different approach, and how do we speak that language again that customers really, that really resonates with those customers, particularly people that are somewhat like Subaru, right? And we said, there's an insight here where instead of, making it about a fire sale, it's about giving back to the communities. It's about doing good in communities. And so what we invited customers who were actually looking to purchase a vehicle in December was to say, if you purchase a Subaru, $250 will go towards a charity of your choice. And that was our way of contributing to local communities. And so that's really worked out. This spot here is called Share the Love. Let's have a look.
Hi, Shanna. Hi, Archie. You ready?
Oh, come on in.
Some call it giving back. Others call it paying it forward. We call it Share the Love. During the annual Subaru Share the Love event, take home a new Subaru and we'll donate $250 to those in need, bringing our total donations to over $65 million. And bringing love where it's needed most. Love. It's what makes a Subaru a Subaru.
Great spot. Love that.
Yeah, so the natural impact or the fallout of that was that we were able to do a lot of great things in local communities, right? We partnered up with charities, our retailers got behind this effort, and we really had a lot of success. And over the 7 years that we've really promoted this, we've been able to do a lot of really good things, including give away over $65 million to charities of choices that, specifically came from people that bought Subarus. I mean, that was their choice. And so if you go to the next slide, you'll notice that there were quite a few things that we were able to do to contribute to local communities. I don't know if you want to flip to the next slide here.
There you go.
We probably took that slide out, but that's okay.
We have one more spot.
Yeah, so we can transition into this. Here's sort of a light-hearted approach and content that we developed based on a data insight that we found a few years back. And that was that we knew, after looking and doing some research, that Subaru owners are twice as likely to own a dog. Think about that. That came from just a single point of data. And we were able to capitalize on that. So this spot is called Dog Tested. Let's have a look.
Je t'aime, mi amour. Oui, oui, mon chéri.
Love that. Great job, you guys.
Sometimes the cost of entry is just being a little bit lighthearted and giving a nod to some comedy. So that's worked out pretty well for us. But again, that came from a single point of data insight that we found, and it's been a big hit for us.
Yeah, I love that. So so thanks for sharing these examples of storytelling. And as you can see, all of them are video. And I'd love to hear from you, what's the role of video in storytelling? And also in our day and age of digital, how are you able to make that meaningful connection with the consumer, understand the consumer across any device? And I remember one of you yesterday when we were preparing, you said, we're device agnostic. So I'd love to hear the role of video in your strategy.
Yeah, so for us, you guys just saw it, right? When you look at these spots, they're either funny or they're tugging at your heartstrings, or you're seeing some sort of environmental impact, and it's very difficult to get that type of emotional commitment from a consumer from a banner ad, right? So we really leverage video to tell our brand story. And when you start to look at sort of why we need to do that, it really, again, ties back to just that fact that you can't do it in a banner ad. There's no way. And then from a platform agnostic perspective, we sort of go into that a lot because traditionally we were a very heavy user of sort of TV to broadcast out our message, right, which sort of tied back into that video piece, and we were very good at that. And I think over the past couple of years, we really had to say, like, what else can we do? And it's not that TV goes away. It's that how can TV and digital sort of work together? So we don't really care where the customer sees the video. As long as they see the video, they're impacted by it, and we can start to look at, like, oh, what's our scale in TV versus what's our scale in digital, and just see where it makes the most sense. Because for us, Subaru is still an unknown brand to some people, so you need the scale of TV to sort of get that out in front of them. So that's why we leverage it a lot.
And it goes back to this idea, remember, I mean, we've heard this probably a million times, content is king, right? And so we know that rings true. But again, it's platform agnostic. When you start talking about programmatic is really, no matter where you're investing your dollars, it's just a complicated mathematical formula. And unless you have a really good story to tell, it's really not going to work, because you can really turn programmatic on and throw money against it. But unless you have a really good story to tell, it's not effective.
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, you've been a partner with Brightroll for years, and we've been partnering with programmatic video to be able to tell that story and connect with consumers. And so thank you for that, and thank you for co-creating with Yahoo. But I'd love for you, if you could, share some examples or reasons why you think the partnership has been so successful, and how we're able to partner beyond just focusing on efficiency, right? Efficiency and measurement and striking that right balance between art and science.
Sure, and that's a good way to look at it. When we look at the partnership, we look at a lot of things that were really successful, right? We look at the data that you guys were able to provide and the technology that you're able to provide us. But then we look at what we are able to give you guys, and in a partnership with our agency, sort of a really clear direction on where we are headed. So sort of picking up what Rob had just mentioned, which was we come in with a goal in mind. It's not we want to do programmatic video because everyone's doing that. I think we really need to be out there. It's we want to influence people with a lot of scale and know who those people are, right? Because we already have TV to do the scale part solo. So if you look at programmatic video, how do you sort of identify, like, who are we talking to and how do we continue the message with them? So how do you give them a little bit of it's like a mix of spices, right? Like you give them a little bit of the dog stuff, a little bit of the eco stuff, a little bit of the share the love, and that in turn creates a bigger, better story for Subaru, and I feel like you guys were able to really help us sort of capitalize on that.
Right, it's what I was speaking to in the introduction. It's those ingredients of inspiration, right, purpose, ensuring we're aligned on our goals together, and also measurement.
Defining the goal is really key, because again, without really knowing where your North Star is, it's just programmatic, right? And it's just content. But we've sort of built that relationship around co-creation, and what's important is working with a partner that's willing to just sort of take this approach of, hey, we're not just going to take something off the shelf and run it. Let's really figure out a solution based on what the need is. And we've locked ourselves in rooms with you guys in many occasions where we've talked about, okay, what's next? What do we do? How do we innovate? How do we take programmatic to a whole different level? And what are some of the things that could solve for the problems that we're trying to solve for, particularly at a national level or even at a local level, depending on what that need is. So for us, that's critically important, and you have to find the right partner to do that.
Right. And then I just have two more questions. The next question is getting back to that point around ROI. So how have you evolved as a marketer in data and with the importance of data? How do you think about the use of data? Can you speak to that, like in terms of driving that hockey stick growth?
Sure. So the data is obviously an important part and tells you who you can target, but the machine by itself will sort of always optimize to, let's just say, the most efficient thing, right? That's probably the easiest thing to do. but you really need a person behind all those controls to say, hold on for a second, why should we be advertising more, let's just say Impreza, which is one of our vehicles, if we don't have any Imprezas left? Like, shouldn't we go after something else, or shouldn't we start to take a look at building sort of brand connection for the future? Like, how do we do those things? And I think that's what it's really allowed us to be able to do.
Okay. And then last question. So it's CES, and we're all here again,
Yes.
first week of January. And what do you see as the biggest opportunities this year in 2016? You could, for marketers or for Subaru? You can answer it either way.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it really gets back to the fundamentals. I mean, I think you might be looking for the secret sauce answer, but there really isn't one, right? It goes back to what I mentioned earlier. And that is, if you create good content and you think about what direction you want to go with your brand, first it's connecting with your consumer, understanding who your owners are and what are their passions, right? And that's sort of been that's where we started, right? We forgot about all the media channels for a second, and we said, if there was one job for us to do, it was not to have 6 taglines in 7 years. It was to really establish ourselves as a brand and really talk to consumers in the way that they can connect with us. So I think that's really key as you walk away as a marketer, to be thinking about, how do I reinvent a brand if I'm struggling to try and get people to engage and really try to understand who we are and how we represent ourselves in the marketplace. And then it's working with the right partners, right? Understanding what your goals are and really identifying the partners that can help you attain those goals. Beyond that, I mean, we could talk programmatic all day long. We could talk about viewability. We could talk about all these different buzzwords. But what it comes down to is fundamental marketing that oftentimes we kind of shy away from or we forget because we've got all these great buzzwords that we talk
It's
about.
getting back to the basics and
That's
the
right.
fundamentals.
That's absolutely right.
Right. Anything else you want to add, Jack?
No, I mean, just from personal experience of walking the floor yesterday at CES, there's so many opportunities to gather data, and to Rob's earlier point, like you could sort of wear yourself out and saying, like, oh, do I need to know where this person is and are they on another retailer's lot, or are they on, like, there's just so much you can learn from sort of the big data buzzword, but it's really, again, about how to stay ahead of the curve, one, from a technology standpoint, and then how to utilize the data that you really think you can do something with, something that you can build a story around to be successful, and that's where we're headed.
Okay, great. So with that, I want to thank you for coming up on stage today and sharing your story and how you're making relevant connections with the Subaru consumer every day. And thank you again for your partnership with Yahoo.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Give them
Thank
a
you,
thank
everyone.
you. Okay, great.